Right, let's just get a bit of tape around this a second. Right. When I feel like I'm tightening up and I just feel as though I need some, it's almost like therapy, if you like. I can just put an imaginary scene down. So I'm thinking of a building here. Can't see the full building, just the roof maybe. There's a little sort of gradient down over this hill in front of us here. Couple of little bit of suggestion of a hedgerow. Let's try that. See how much I can paint of it with one large brush. So put out some generic colors. Why don't I have a bit of fun and put out some unusual colors? After all, when I am doing these type of things for my own benefit, I do tend not to. I do tend to veer off the standard color palette. All that I concern myself with really is warms and cools. Let's get a sky in here. This is just mix of what was already on the palette, mostly ultramarine blue and that rose color, that bright rose. I mean, you can use permanent rose, whatever you like. So if I let that dry off, okay, rather than put the next section in, I'll move to the foreground. That will give that edge a chance to dry off a little bit. And I'll warm things up down here with, I'll show you what I'm doing. I've got 3 colors, look, and my brush is going across all 3 of them. Cadmium yellow, raw sienna, vermilion red. Perhaps I'd like it to be a bit more yellow. I could turn this green very easily, of course, if I want to, just by adding a blue. Or I could just mute it. If I don't want it to go green, but I find the red too bright, all I have to do is find the opposite number to red, and that's green. I don't have a green on my palette. I could put some vermilion out. It was on the list. I didn't use it for the earlier painting this morning. I just put a little bit of green out. So taking a green like this is a shortcut. Otherwise, I'd have mixed ultramarine blue and yellow, and that would have been a green. And watch how the green just diffuses a red so instantly, okay? It'll go eventually. If I were to do this, a lot of this, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, that will go gray. It'll go a form of gray, a neutral. If I think, oh, do you know, I liked it before, I preferred it where it was before, I'll go back to those colors again. The only way you can do this is by the use of a lot of paint, of course. And you'll never get back quite to the brightness, the color saturation it was. But I'm hoping you'll see that, you know, by painting quickly with your ideas coming forward rapidly, it seems easier. I think it seems easier to remember things by doing things quickly. It's contrary to what you'd believe, perhaps, that by doing things slowly, it lands and stays with you. I think it's the opposite. I think we learn things better by doing things quickly. As I said, that seems very counterintuitive to do that. It doesn't seem right, but it works. It seems to work for people this morning too. So there's a sort of foreground color. If I take off these little reservoirs that have developed, okay, on my bead edge, then what I put in here won't drift up too much into the sky. I don't mind it drifting up into the sky. A greeny yellow, I think, because a greeny yellow will contrast nicely against that sky. Paint around my little house. Just going around the little house. I think we'll have a bit more yellow in this green. because yellow is the complementary of purple, of course, which is the sky. And I'm being careful. Every time I touch the sky color, I know that things are going to drift upwards slightly. Now, these colors so far are very pushed. By that, I mean they're very saturated, okay, artificial, in fact. So I'm thinking, okay, perhaps I don't want to go that artificial. I don't want to push my colors quite that much. So I'll do as I did down in the foreground. Opposite of green is red. Pick up a little bit of that rose color off my palette here. And this cool rose red color will knock that green back. See, instant like that. Just knocks the green, takes the acidity, the garishness out of the green. Maybe one little territory, I'll leave it a little bit brighter. So maybe some of this color can creep into the foreground for a bit of continuity, just to bring colors from the background into the foreground in some territory. Okay. Now I could warm that. That's still wet. I think it's still wet enough for me to warm the lower sky up. I think I'll leave it like it is. Maybe I'll just encourage the paint to mix a little bit at the base of the sky. Like that. Okay. Let me just speed dry this. So I purposely didn't dry it completely. I'm sort of deliberately looking at the clock up there and deliberately giving myself no more than 15, 20 minutes, something like that. So what about a little area of things going on along that skyline there? Got some cauliflowers developing, so I might as well use them. Could warm that up a bit, actually. But on these trees, whatever they are here, I'll use a much different color paint mix. I'll get rid of all the water. I'll just take the paint directly off the palette here, like this. The blue, the burnt sienna, very little water in this brush. Perhaps a bit of raw sienna as well as burnt sienna, and a little bit of green maybe just in there. So splay the brushes, and we'll just scrub. It's probably not enough water in there, to be honest. So got to take more paint. So I won't just pick up more water. Let's pick up more paint before I pick up more water. Now a little bit more water, and that's a better, there we are. It's a better delivery off that type of load. It's all about the loading of the brush is so important. And then what you do, of course, with the brush is sort of brush craft. It's all part of your brush skills, your brush craft. Probably a bit heavy, this, but I'll reserve judgment for another couple of minutes' time. That's better. Just lifting that off a bit. I'll just outline my little roof. Same colors, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. And I'll give that a lintel. We'll give that a little bit of a roof line back there. think I'll just put in a nice warmish neutral in here. When I say a warm neutral, simply mean that I'm using opposite colors, blue and orange, but allowing the orange, which is the warm color, to dominate the color, the mix. And tap a bit of water, perhaps into the foreground here. Imagine it to be some sort of like meadow, perhaps a little bit of really watery ultramarine blue here. Got to be honest, for this, normally, to do what I'm about to do, I'd normally use cerulean blue because it is slightly more opaque and just holds its ground a little bit more when you paint through these wet passages like this. And that's it. I think that did take 50 minutes, maybe less. I don't know. And you could, you can always embellish on these things. But I just wanted to sort of show you how, as long as you're prepared to invent, the place doesn't. Well, I say the place doesn't exist. Maybe somewhere in the old cobwebby areas of my brain, my little old brain here. It's maybe I've seen this place. Who knows? But yeah, it's just great fun, and it's very liberating and very educational for yourself, just to prove to yourself what can be accomplished, and just accept the fact that you may get a few disasters before you get to this stage where you can where you nearly always get a reasonable result. Please don't think I do. I do get disasters, and I always accept them, embrace them, in fact, because to me, there's no such thing as a disaster. There are paintings that aren't good enough to go in a frame and aren't good enough to show people, but to me, they're as important paintings to me as my good paintings, because they're revealing, they're educational, they you just accept the fact that it was a learning opportunity.